I don't believe you're the heir of Slytherin, Harry. Not like some people.
Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, welcome back to my video game review series. So those of you who have been following my channel will know that recently I just got done reviewing the entire mainline Harry Potter video game series. It's a series that certainly had its ups and downs, and some of the early games in the series were actually awesome in my opinion. When I did my review for the 6th generation version of Chamber of Secrets, I pointed out in that video that I was talking specifically about the PS2 version, and that at some point I would be doing a video about the Xbox version, because contrary to popular belief and unlike the other 6th generation Potter games, the PS2 and Xbox versions of Chamber are actually very different. Not so much in terms of the overall gameplay and design, but more so in regards to the game's technicalities. It's quite well known that the Chamber of Secrets was more or less the most ambitious game in the entire series, and if truth be told, it's definitely the game that really set the standard for the series going forward, since it was the first open world sandbox style game in the series. So it really had a lot riding on it. At the same time though, the game had a lot of problems in development and had a bit of a rushed and unpolished feel to it. As I mentioned before, unlike the other games in the series, Chamber had some major technical differences between the Xbox and PS2 versions. What I'm going to do with this video is I'm not going to bother giving the game a massive retrospective review, because a lot of what I'd be saying would just be a repeat of what I said when I reviewed the PS2 version. What I'm instead going to do is do a quick comparison and talk about some of the technical differences between the two versions of the game, so this probably isn't going to be a very long video. So one difference that you'll notice right off the bat is that the Xbox version, as what usually turned out to be the case, actually does have one big advantage, and that is the graphics. With the Xbox being a more powerful console within the PS2, the graphics and presentation as well as the character models and textures all look quite a bit better in this version. Unfortunately though, that's pretty much it for advantages. One major issue with the Xbox version is that even the backwards compatibility feature is broken. I actually tried to play the game on my 360, and it was just awful. If you try to do it, the game basically plays in slow motion due to the awful frame rate issues, and yeah, it's not really worth trying. It looks and plays fine on the original Xbox though. You will notice too that several of the collectibles are missing in this version, and several areas that you could access in the PS2 version seem to have been either forgotten about or just removed entirely here. Also, some of the cutscenes and interactions between the characters, as well as the dialogue, is very different here. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but it is interesting. I particularly like how the characters will just throw chocolate frogs at Harry. That was pretty funny.
Here, have a chocolate frog for your efforts. Thanks, Mrs. Weasley.
Another difference with the Xbox version is the camera. Now, the camera in the PS2 version wasn't exactly perfect, but it was at least manageable. In the Xbox version, there are several sections where you get a fixed camera. This is very annoying, particularly in some of the stealth and platforming sections. It makes it so that you can't always see where you're going, or what's in front of you, and it makes the platforming sections of the game a complete chore to play for the most part. And the stealth sections are so much more tedious, despite there being less of them. And perhaps the biggest difference between the two versions of the game, the open world mechanics. In the PS2 version, Hogwarts was basically a massive open sandbox game where you could explore the castle and the grounds, and everything seemed to be connected. In the Xbox version of the game, however, there are invisible walls and barriers everywhere, and each of the exterior locations of the castle are sectioned off from one another. This makes exploring the grounds much less interesting than in the PS2 version, and it just lessens the experience in my personal opinion. Also, when flying around the grounds on your broomstick, there are only a handful or so of predetermined locations for you to land, whereas in the PS2 version, you could explore the entire game looking for characters and collectibles. And even the mini-games and challenges here feel so much more unrefined. Another issue with the Xbox version is that there appears to be a whole bunch of missing content. For example, in the PS2 version, In the sections of the game where you have to avoid ghosts, you could ward them off with lumos, and even hang from ledges when they try to rush you. In this version, however, there is absolutely nothing you can do to avoid them. They will fly into you constantly, and when shimmying across ledges, you simply can't avoid them. There are also way more enemies placed in seemingly inconvenient locations, such as right in front of doors, and the placement of enemies here just seems completely random and thoughtless. The whole game is just so frustrating because of this. The game also feels much shorter than the PS2 version, and has much less content overall. So yeah, the graphics and character models are much better, and some of the backgrounds and locations look much nicer in my opinion, and it's a better looking game overall. But the fixed camera and the lack of open world mechanics, in my opinion, make the Xbox version not quite as good as the PS2 version. The PS2 version just had more to offer in my opinion, and it's definitely the version that I would recommend. That's pretty much all I have to say about the Chamber of Secrets on the Xbox. As I mentioned before, I already reviewed the PS2 version in depth. And if you want to know more about the game, you can check out the review in the description section to this video if you want to. I will also leave a link to my Harry Potter review series playlist, so you can check out my other Harry Potter reviews if you like also. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and God bless.
And so, for their many achievements and outstanding commitment to the school, it is with great pleasure that I present the House Cup to Gryffindor.